there is an European leader, a British leader, that hasn't been recognized all his importance and all what he did for his country and even for Europe. You will be surprised to listen to who I'm thinking about, but please analyze what I'm saying and then take your own conclusions. And if you have any comments about that, please write on the comments. I'm looking forward to receive your point of view. I'm talking about to Nigel Farage. Yes, you listen well, Nigel Farage. Why I consider Nigel Farage an hero, not only in the United Kingdom, but also in Europe. If we analyze his work, firstly in the United Kingdom and in favor of his country, it is easy to understand the importance of what he did. He was the promoter and also the one that was able to bring the Brexit process to a positive conclusion for Great Britain. But at the same time, it has been criticized quite a lot inside the United Kingdom because many people wanted, despite the majority of the country voted for Brexit, many people wanted to remain under the European domination. But thanks to the work of that politician, of Mr. Farage, Europe, England, was able to free from the chain that were imposed by the European Union. So, if we analyze what he did, it has been amazing on behalf of the British people. First, he was able to gather a coalition in order to bring to the election the possibility British citizen to decide to remain under the European domination, let's say, or to get free from it. So he was able to gather a group of people with his idea, and he was able to win the referendum. It showed us that British people are, in the end, people that loves their freedom, and they were able to choose the best path. Before the referendum, during the referendum, and after the referendum, there were many critics all around Europe about the decision that the Brits were about to take. And most of the people, the press that was obviously all in favor of the European Union, they were all against what it was happening with the referendum. But then all the predictions of these people failed. Actually, Britain is not doing so bad. And in my opinion, thanks to be free from the European Union, has a bright future in front of itself. So Farage was able to gather together similar people with similar ideas and to achieve the Brexit. Without Farage, the Brexit wouldn't have been possible for the Brits. So without Farage, in my opinion, Britain will still be will still be part of the European Union. There are other leaders that embraced the Farage leadership, for example, Boris Johnson. But all the other leaders, if we analyze well, they understood that it was the winning chariot. So they decide, well, it's better to jump on it. They didn't truly, in my opinion, believe that it was the right choice. Only Mr. Farage was able to understand that it was the only and the best choice for England and for the Great Britain. But you will be surprised by my analysis why Mr. Farage could be considered also an European leader. Well, or an European, even worse, an European hero. I will let you know what is my analysis of Mr. Farage and the play he made inside the European Parliament and inside the European Union. But before arriving to that analysis, it's important to understand what represents the European Union. First, the cost of the European Union is on the shoulders of European citizens, that are the ones that are paying the deep state, the cost of the deep state of Brussels and of the all institutions that have been built around the European Union. This institution, if you consider the cost on an annual base, is not, maybe most of you will think, okay, it's not only that percent, it's not so important. But if you multiply that cost over many decades, you will arrive to my conclusion. It is money that is thrown away, and these represent resources that have been destroyed. So, first, for obvious reason of cost. Then you have another important consideration, all the limitations that are coming from the European Union. The European Union, thanks to the decision that it takes, put a lot of limitation, so it diminishes the freedom of all countries that are part of the same union. So Farage understood the importance of having your sovereignty that is limited thanks to an union, an abstract entity, that nobody really understands the benefit of it. Yes, there are some people in Europe that take a lot of advantage of being part of the European Union. For example, the lobbyists. It seems that there are more than 20,000 lobbyists in Europe. So, the main question that you have to ask is, does the European Parliament and the European Commission have the capability to take decisions on behalf of the European citizens? Well, the answer, you will be surprised that actually is not. Why? Because you have together a majority of parties with opposite idea. You have extreme leftist party. For example, the last majority that elected Ursula von der Leyen, in that election, the Movimento 5 Stelle from Italy is an extreme left party, voted together with the socialists and with the Partito Popolare Europeo. So, you will arrive to a conclusion that you have the extreme left plus what you consider normally the right. So, the main point is to understand what are the policies that are implemented from such a bizarre majority. Well, actually, I believe that the extreme left policies have taken control of the European Union. For example, during the last days, the European regulation about greenhouses has passed. That regulation will be particularly harmful for most of European citizens, especially the one in South Europe. Maybe that regulation would have been an interesting regulation for northern countries. But for sure, for southern countries, it is a disgrace. It is a disgraceful decision. Why? Because every owner of apartment, houses, etc., will have to embrace a very important cost in order to upgrade their houses. And this is only a little example of how Europe, the European Union, little by little is destroying, in my opinion, the wealth of European citizens. Because most of the ideas that are implemented at European level are extreme left ideas. So Nigel Farage was able to uncover the truth. And it was the only one, and the first one, in my opinion, that was telling the truth during the speeches in the European Parliament. And then I have another example for you. For example, the fact that you have the two parliaments, actually, one in Brussels and the other one in Strasbourg. Why? It comes from a chauvinist idea from France. Probably French people wanted to have also their own parliament. So I believe that French leaders said, nous voulons aussi un parlement en France. Yeah, I'm sorry for the French, but I imagine French leaders, French politicians with that idea. So Nigel Farage was able to understand what was happening in Europe. Then you might say, okay, but the Tories, the British Conservative, they were in part agree with Farage. Yes, in part they were agree. Cameron actually was against, but Johnson would agree. was agreed. But I repeat, they split because they didn't have a clear idea about it. Same situation with most of the Conservative Party all throughout Europe. At the end of the day, they are allied of the extreme left. So the decisions that are taken at the European level are leftist decisions that limit the freedom of their citizens. And then you have the last factor to take in consideration, that is a very important cultural differences between each country. South Europe has different cultures from Northern Europe. So you don't have only the language barrier, but you have also to take in consideration all other cultural aspects that enable Europe to be understood and to be really unique entity, like unique country, like you have it, for example, in the United States. At the opposite, in the United States, you have a dominant culture, and all other people from other culture that went there, they adapted to the rules of the main cultures that was running the countries. In Europe, it's much more complex because you have languages barriers, and then you have cultural barriers that are more complex than languages. So finally, it is a dystopic, unfunctional reality. And just to conclude my analysis, it's important to understand, for example, the European Union and its role with the war in Ukraine. It is not a really clear role. Probably if the European Union was more effective, would have been able to stop the war. At the opposite, they surrender to other idea, and now the situation jeopardized the security of many European citizens. It would have been much better to stop the war, to arrive to some sort of agreement, instead to do what others decide to do. So, if we analyze the role and the position of the European Union on the international and on global scale, it is close to zero. That's the reality. There are a lot of people with different culture that think different, that speak different languages, and they are not able to arrive to a final conclusion. At the end of the day, who runs the union? Well, the deep state, what we know in the United States as deep states, together with the lobbyists. That's the reality that is running Europe. So, Nigel Farage was the one to understand that. And also for the European people that wants to really be critic, to listen the Nigel Farage point of view is enlightening. That's why I consider Nigel Farage not only a British hero, but also an European hero. But let me know what you think about my analysis. If I think I'm wrong, let me know what you think, and I'm looking forward to have you in my next presentation. Thank you.